Back into the storm. Chapter 1. I think I forgot to tell you the hardest part. A gentle note before I begin. I'd like to share something with you. Over the coming weeks, I'm going to be writing about some of the hardest moments I experienced during antidepressant withdrawal, and I'll be revisiting memories that are still incredibly painful and personal, even all these years later. I'm choosing to write about them because I believe there is great comfort in feeling understood. When you're living through something as frightening and isolating as antidepressant withdrawal, knowing that someone has truly been there can make the impossible just feel a little more bearable. At the same time, I also know these stories may feel intense if you're currently in the thick of withdrawal yourself. Please read them gently, take breaks if you need to, and come back another day if it feels overwhelming. And if you feel these stories aren't right for you at this moment, that's okay too. Your well-being will always be more important than reading anything I write. Above all, I'd like you to remember one thing. Every story I share comes from someone who survived. I did not stay in those moments forever. I hope that thought quietly stays with you as we begin. When I created the Antidepressant Withdrawal Haven, I did so with one simple intention: to become the safe place I desperately wish had existed when I was trying to make sense of my own withdrawal. I wanted it to be somewhere people could find reliable information, gentle reassurance, and perhaps most importantly, hope. Not false hope or empty positivity, but the quiet reassurance that healing really can happen, even when every part of you believes it never will. If you've spent any time reading my blogs, following me on social media, or exploring my resources, you'll probably have noticed that hope has become a thread running through almost everything I write. I've shared what recovery has taught me, what I wish I had known before tapering, the lessons I've learned since healing, and the life I've slowly rebuilt on the other side. Recently, though, I found myself reflecting on something. In my determination to show you the rainbow after the storm, I may have forgotten to talk enough about the storm itself. That realization has stayed with me for weeks, because when I think back to my own withdrawal, I realized that the thing I needed most wasn't someone telling me that I was going to be okay one day. Of course, I needed hope, but before I could even begin to believe a brighter future, I needed something else. I needed someone to sit beside me in the darkness and quietly say, I know, I've been here too. Not because they had all the answers, but because they understood. Because they knew what it felt like to wake up every morning in terror, to question your own mind, to grieve the life you thought you'd lost, to search endlessly for explanations while feeling desperately alone. I wasn't looking for perfection. I was looking for recognition. Someone who could help me believe that what I was experiencing wasn't beyond words. Healing has a curious way of changing our perspective. It doesn't erase the past, nor does it diminish what happened. Instead, it gently softens the sharpest edges, making painful memories a little easier to carry. As the years have passed, I've naturally found myself writing more about healing than surviving, more about rebuilding than breaking. Looking back now, I think that's entirely understandable. When you fought your way through the hardest chapter of your life, it's only natural to want to spend your time looking forwards instead of backwards. But then I realized something that stopped me in my tracks. The people reading these blogs today aren't where I am. They're where I was. They're sitting in doctor's surgeries, desperately trying to explain symptoms that don't seem to make sense. They're lying awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, searching the internet for reassurance that they're not losing their minds. They're frightened by thoughts they never had before, overwhelmed by symptoms they never imagined possible, and wondering if they'll ever recognize themselves again. They're searching for exactly the same thing I was searching for all those years ago: someone who understands. That realization made me ask myself a difficult question. Have I become so focused on sharing life after withdrawal that I've unintentionally stopped talking about life during it? The answer, if I'm honest, is yes. Not because I've wanted to hide those years, but because healing has allowed me to step away from them. I've built a life I never believed I'd have again. I've written a memoir. I've created resources to support others. I found purpose in a chapter of my life that once felt utterly meaningless. Without even realizing it, my writing naturally followed that same journey. But perhaps it's time to go back. Not because I want to relive those memories, and certainly not because I want to frighten anyone. I'm going back because I think our stories matter, the whole story, not just the ending. Over the next few chapters, I want to share what antidepressant withdrawal really did to me. I want to talk about what happened to my mind, my body, and my emotions. I want to talk about how it stole my independence and left me feeling like a stranger inside my own skin. I want to write about the relentless fear, the confusion, the grief, the loneliness, and the moments where I genuinely couldn't understand what was happening to me. I want to talk about the nights where I needed constant reassurance from the people I loved because I no longer trusted my own thoughts. I want to talk about sitting in doctor's surgeries, searching for answers, and leaving with even more questions. I want to talk about the anger of realizing nobody had prepared me for this, and the heartbreak of trying to survive something I couldn't even explain. I also want to talk about the rebuilding, because healing wasn't the finish line I imagined it would be. Recovery brought its own challenges as I slowly learned how to trust my body again, rediscover who I was, and build a life around experiences that had changed me forever. These are conversations I think I've perhaps avoided for too long, not because they're easy to tell, but because they're important to hear. Everything I create today exists because of those years. People often ask me why I continue writing, why I spend so much time creating resources, and why I keep returning to a community that reminds me of the hardest period of my life. The answer is actually very simple, because I lived it. I survived it. And I never want another person to feel as lost, confused, or alone as I once did. Some of the greatest comfort I found during withdrawal came from hearing the voices of people who had walked this path before me. Their stories didn't take away my symptoms, but they gave me something equally precious. They made me feel understood. They reminded me that recovery wasn't just a theory, it was living proof sitting in front of me. If these chapters can become that for even one person, then every difficult memory will have been worth revisiting. So, over the next few weeks, you may notice that my writing feels a little different. It will be more personal, more reflective, sometimes more painful. Because antidepressant withdrawal is painful, and I no longer want to pretend that talking honestly about it somehow takes away from hope. If anything, I think it strengthens it. After all, hope doesn't become powerful because we ignore the darkness. It becomes powerful because we know the darkness existed and we survived it anyway. As we walk through this series together, I'd like to make you one promise. I'm not taking you back into the storm to leave you there. I'm taking you back because I found my way out. And if you're reading this while you're still fighting your way out through the storm, I hope that little by little, these chapters will help you believe that one day you'll look back from calmer skies too. Before you go, a personal note from me. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If you're navigating antidepressant withdrawal, I want you to know that I don't write these words from textbooks or theory. I write them as someone who has sat where you may be sitting now, asking the same questions, carrying the same fears, and searching for the same reassurance. Everything I've created, from these blogs to my guides and memoir, come from one hope: to become the person I desperately needed all those years ago. If today's chapter helped you even feel a little less alone, then it's achieved exactly what I hoped it would. Walk through this series with me. This is only the beginning. Over the coming weeks, I'll be sharing each new chapter of Back into the Storm, exploring the realities of antidepressant withdrawal with honesty, compassion, and above all, hope. If you'd like to read each chapter as it's published, I'd love to invite you to download my free guide, 5 Truths I Learned the Hard Way About Surviving Antidepressant Withdrawal, and join my mailing list. I'll send out each new chapter straight to your inbox so you won't miss a step of the journey. I hope you'll walk this path with me. Take gentle care. Claire.